Hey everybody, this is the Perfect 10 Lince Dorado, and you're listening to the ECWF podcast, baby, Mutual World Order.
Get the F out.
All right, welcome to episode number 33 of the ECWF podcast. We will not get the F out, we put the F back in. I'm your host, Sean Bicking, coming to you from the Electric City, Scranton, Pennsylvania. On this episode, I was joined by Cruiserweight Classic participant, Lince Dorado. And during the interview, I screwed his name up, and I apologize once again. Lince Dorado. I said Lince Dorado. So sorry about that again. But in this episode, we talked about his rough childhood growing up in a bad area, which led to tragedy early on in his life. We talk about him breaking in with Chikara and a bad injury he suffered while being there. Talk about different stables that he's been in and leaving Chikara and what went into that decision. Also, his brief TNA work, making ring gear for himself and NXT guys and gals. We talk about the upcoming Cruiserweight Classic. Like I said, he's a participant in. And much more. So, enjoy. All right, back on the podcast here with Lince Dorado and down in Florida there, but you are originally from Mexico, right?
No, that's not true.
No?
No. First of all, it's Lince, not Lince.
Oh,
A
I'm
lot
sorry.
of people get that mixed up. No, it's okay, man. Originally, I was actually born in New Jersey. My background is I'm Puerto Rican. The only reason a couple of years ago why we had said I was from Mexico was because, Lucha Libre is known from the Mexican country. And, that was my training. That's the style that I was trained in. So we kind of paid homage to, the place and the origin of where the style came from. So a lot of people didn't know that. And a lot of people are surprised when I tell them I'm not really Mexican, that I'm actually Puerto Rican.
Oh, okay.
And, but no, that's a great... a lot of people, I'll have that one-on-one conversation with them, but never comes up in interviews, which is weird. So you're the first person to actually bring that up.
Okay. So, did you say what part of New Jersey?
From South Jersey. I was actually born in Camden, New Jersey, right outside of Philadelphia.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that's like our second home. We go there all the time for the summer, like at least 2 or 3 times per the summer, and I mean, I'm embarrassed to say this now, but the Jersey Shore show is what kind of got us hooked on going to Jersey. Went there for a honeymoon and stuff, but ever since then, it's been like...
There's tons of places. You got Wildwood, you got AC. New Jersey is like the middle of the Northeast, so you can get to PA, you can get to New York, you can get to Maryland, Delaware. It's very accessible to all those places. But yeah, like you said, that Jersey Shore show had opened up a lot of doors and eyes to the New Jersey area. But unfortunately for me, it was just, once I was old enough to move, it just became too touristy for me and too expensive. I love the Florida weather, and it's just easier to live down here for at least wrestlers.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely, especially now, I can imagine. Okay, so growing up in New Jersey, you had a kind of a tough childhood growing up, though, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Was it a bad area, or?
Oh, absolutely. Camden, New Jersey was voted 5 years in a row as the worst and most dangerous place to live in America. That means every city in America, they picked Camden, New Jersey as the worst because of, crime, prostitution, drugs, murder rates, and all that. So when I say I wasn't allowed out to legit, I was about 10 or 11 outside, to, go play outside. That's the truth. And I wasn't allowed to go and actually play outside until we moved to the next town over, where I ended up spending pretty much the rest of my childhood. But, I still have family that lives in New Jersey. I got a couple of my grandparents. I got my mom that still lives there. Okay. So occasionally when I do go back, I still visit. And it has not changed, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Boarded houses, even more boarded houses. Crime rate has gone down a very little bit. But that's because I think they're just, they're, like I said, they're hiking up the prices and trying to move everybody out.
Right. Now, You mentioned Camden 5 years in a row. Was that recently, or that's when you were younger?
Well, when I was younger, the internet was brand new. I'm still talking like on AIM and like Yahoo
Oh boy.
Messenger and things like that. But, as time has gone on since like the 2000s, this was recently, probably around 2000, I want to say like 8 or 9 to, 5 or 6 years after that. And again, recently it's been on that list. Whether it's the number one, I'm not too sure, but definitely top 5 in the past 5 years. But no, this was early 2000s, 2010, where Camden, New Jersey was voted 5 times in a row worst city in America.
See, every time we go to New Jersey, everybody tells us watch out for Newark is real bad and Hoboken is real bad too.
Yeah, that's the North Jersey part.
Yeah.
And that's because it's close to New York, New York City, and Camden, New Jersey is right across the bridge from Philadelphia. So we get the crime rate from both areas, Philly and Camden, and like you said, Hoboken and New York. So I mean, there's the correlation right there that people don't realize. Yeah,
definitely. Okay. Can I ask you about your dad? There was a kind of a story about that I was reading about.
I'm open, man. I'm an open book. Yes, okay. Whatever, I'll answer.
Yeah, so obviously growing up in a bad neighborhood and stuff like that led to an unfortunate incident with your dad.
Yeah, so what happened was growing up, my mom was a single parent. I had a stepdad in my house who was always considered my dad. And, growing up, I never understood why I would always call him by his real name. To me, his real name it registered in my head as dad. And when I was about 10 or 11, finally it had came out that he was not my real dad. So you can understand where a kid who is, smart enough to understand his surroundings and, smart enough to understand his family situation, how it could take a big toll on me. So finally, when they told me he wasn't my real dad, the next question was, well, who is my real dad? And finally, they introduced me to him. He was in a bad place in his life. I knew he always loved me because he would always write to me. There was letters that were hidden away from me, but finally were given to me. He would always make stuff because he was always in jail, and he would, he took up carpentry. And I still have things today that he made me 20 years ago, perfect condition, just because those are the sentimental values that I've had. Like, that was the only thing he ever really gave me materialistic one.
Right.
And then finally, I was about 12 years old. I was turning 13. I remember this. I came home from wrestling practice. I came home, can I go outside? She said, yeah. I came in. I was hanging out at my friend Matt's house. 6 o'clock came. That was my check-in time. I called her. I said, hey, Mom, I'm stuck, so-and-so's house. And she dropped a bombshell on me. She was like, well, hey, guess what? Guess who called you? And I said, who? She said, your dad. And in my head, I was like, wow, really? Like, oh, well, maybe he's, maybe he had a couple minutes in jail. He can call me and things like that. But what really happened was he was actually released. And he wanted to surprise me and my sister. But because I wasn't home, he didn't come over. And that's understandable. He wasn't going to wait around for, the hours that I didn't know what time I was going to be home. Mm-hmm. So he ended up going out that night. And it was just a situation of bad place, or wrong place, wrong time kind of thing, where, they were out to go get somebody else, but he was the target that night, I guess. And, this was also in Camden, New Jersey. And eventually it came out, the autopsy, that they put battery acid in his drink. Mm-hmm. And that same night he ended up passing away. So the very next day, Dan's coming home from wrestling practice, because that was my life. Wrestling and sports was my escape from, my environment. Mm-hmm. So when I did that, when I came home, they sat me down, and I saw my stepdad crying, and I knew something was going on, because he is a grown man. He never cries. Yeah. And they dropped that bombshell that, hey, your dad passed away, and I was devastated. It took a lot from me, because I felt like I just got to know him. Mm-hmm. Because me and him would talk all the time. Since the day that I realized he was my dad to the day he died, we talked almost every day. And just to be taken away from me after, 3 or 4 years that me and him really got to know each other, it just was very devastating for me. You know what? That same year, I actually lost my grandpa, too, who was my second father figure to my stepdad. Mm-hmm. And it was just like one after the other. I was like, whoa, this is crazy. Yeah. thing. So, that helped shape my life. It was a bad incident, a bad event in my life, but it actually helped shape me to be the person who I am today.
Yeah, I mean that's like a big thing too, because you mentioned your stepdad. You thought was your dad for the first 10, 11 years. Did he have a relationship with your real dad before you knew about it, or?
Yeah, so it came out to be that my dad, my biological dad, was man enough to realize that he wasn't going to be able to be the father that he wanted to be to me and my sister.
Yeah.
And I respect that a lot because it's not very tough to be a dad, but it's very tough to be a man who has a child who understands that they're not responsible to have that child.
Absolutely.
So when my mom and my real dad split and my mom started dating my stepdad, they had a conversation. And from my understanding is they had a meeting and they sat down and, my real dad gave the blessing to my stepdad to go ahead and raise me and my sister the way that he wanted to. And he respected the values that my stepdad did, and I respect it to this day. My mom and my stepdad aren't together anymore, but, I still call my stepdad. I still write to him on Facebook. He comments on a couple things on my Facebook every once in a while, but me and him are very still close because, that's the guy I spent a good part of my childhood, if not my entire childhood, until I was a teenager with. And he has showed me a lot of things that I would never forget, from fixing things around the house to life values.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, you mentioned your grandfather too. I know he was a big influence on you as well. You mentioned, he gave you your nickname. Is that right?
Yeah, he was. Well, that part of the family from my mom's side, he was. Man, my grandpa was a saint, and what's funny, his real name is Santo, and in Spanish that means saint.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a big part of his community, his little area, because he would offer jobs to a lot of the drug dealers to try to get them off the streets. He would do a lot of the yard work. He would sell candy to the little kids. He would make ices, for the little kids, just to keep them off the streets, keep them distracted from everything that was around them that was negative. And that was like I said, my second dad. And he passed away because of cancer, and it wasn't anything like his environment took him. It was just years of smoking, and then 30 years later he stopped smoking, and just over time his lungs got bad, and like I said, cancer took him away from me. But he was very influential to me. He loved watching wrestling with me. Him and my other grandpa are the reason why I started watching wrestling. And, they supported me in everything I did, from wrestling professionally to wrestling amateurly. And I learned a lot from him.
Definitely. Now, which grandfather was it on your mom's or dad's side that died the same year as your real dad?
I'll say that one more time.
Which grandfather was it on your mom or dad's side that died the same year as your real dad?
My grandfather on my mom's side died.
Okay. And I mean, to have two losses like that, kind of back to back, I mean, what was the challenge like? Yeah. What was the challenge like? Because, like, living in that bad area, you could have easily turned to drugs or that kind of lifestyle.
Absolutely. Well, because my dad was, big into drugs, and that was the reason why he was mostly in jail. I knew that wasn't the avenue for me, right. And I took that as I think it's time to move kind of thing. So, me and my sister fought with my mom and my stepdad, like, this isn't the area. This isn't a place to grow family. If you want me to be like my stepdad, if you want me to be like my real dad, you can keep me here, but if you want me to do something with my life, we need to move. And, that's what we did. We ended up moving not so much farther than Camden, but right outside of Camden in the next town, which was a lot better, a little bit smaller, less temptation, I would say. Mm-hmm. And, it's just very fortunate that I was able to do that because not a lot of kids can do that.
Yeah, definitely to have the know-how, yeah, like the willpower almost.
Oh, absolutely. I've grown up with kids who were, president of the classroom or president of the class and, straight A students, and now they're stuck in that same environment. So they're stuck doing drugs. They're not working. They dropped out of school, whether it's high school or college. It's very sad and frustrating, but at the same time, I knew I didn't want to be a statistic. And that's what I needed to do.
Absolutely. Okay, so getting into wrestling, you were a tape trader back in the day, right? Old ECW, New Japan stuff.
Oh yeah, I was one of the probably the last generation of those tape traders because
Yeah.
Camden, New Jersey was right outside of Philly, and literally all the bridges that went into Philly, especially the Walt Whitman Bridge, and if anybody knows, the Walt Whitman Bridge drops you off right in front of the ECW arena.
Mm-hmm.
So we would get shows there, and then after ECW closed down, you had CZW, you had ROH, you had Chikara, you had all of these other places. But really, I didn't know anything about the indies until I actually broke in. Everything was WWF, WCW, AAA, CMLL, WWC in Puerto Rico. And when I finally went over there, this guy had a stand of just bootleg DVDs and VHSs, and I'm like, whoa, what are these? And it finally introduced me to like Japan and Europe and all these other things. And being a 16-year-old, going to ECW and all these other places, and finding these like great matches and great VHSs and DVDs, it was just, I still have them,
Yeah. I think I read too that it was '94 Survivor Series that kind of got you hooked.
The Royal, that was the one with Yokozuna and the Undertaker casket match. Because I had watched Lucha Libre and Puerto Rican wrestling. That's all I grew up on.
Yeah.
Hispanic family. But then once that came in my life, and that was right before school. Like I was literally about to get on the bus. My uncle came over and said, "Hey, you got to check this out. This is the craziest thing I have ever seen." And when I saw it, I was like, "This is the craziest thing I've ever seen." Because, you have The Undertaker, who everybody knows. But, back then he was the dead man. And then you had Yokozuna, who was, 500-600-pound big man, but he was super agile. And then at the end, not only that, before I get there, but not only that, but they were trying to bury each other alive.
Yeah.
So it's like, what is this? What is going on? A casket match, that's what it was.
Yeah.
And then at the end, they had all these guys come out. You had Jeff Jarrett, you had Goldust, all these other colorful characters. And you're like, this is like Lucha Libre, but without the mask. And instantly I was hooked.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. And you mentioned CZW and Chikara. That's kind of like where you broke in, right? By being trained by Mike Quackenbush and Claudio or Cesaro now. And I believe you did a couple of seminars with different people too, right? Like coming up.
Yeah. So a couple of my original trainers, that was when CZW and Chikara were together. I think they were just called the Wrestle Factory. And now Chikara's wrestling school is just the Wrestle Factory. I think CZW school is the CZW Academy. And, I had no idea how to break into wrestling. Now you could just look up on the internet, find a school, and just join. Back, I was the last generation where it was like, hey, this company has a school, you should go there. And I'm like, whoa, what is going on? And, there it was, Mike Quackenbush and Chris Hero were the two main trainers. You had Claudio Castagnoli, you had Sarah Del Rey, and then you had a few other, special guests come in to do, seminars. And then eventually, I had got trained as well by Skyline El Pantera. So in the the traditional Lucha Libre style. And it was just, from there I went off to do some other seminars and, just learn from some other people just before shows and things like that. And, I'm still learning. That's what good wrestlers still constantly learn and train.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So with all those different kind of styles, though, mixed together, how did that help shape, your style?
Absolutely. So right now it's actually made me a little bit more diverse because I can have matches with anybody. And what I mean by that is, I could do the Japanese style, do the Lucha Libre style, which I'm a little bit more comfortable doing. I could do the American style. I could do the catch as can if I really wanted to. I could do all those styles because I was introduced and I was exposed to all of those. A lot of people, they get trained in one style, and that's the only style they do. They don't accommodate the other wrestlers. They don't, change who they are to help each other out. Because in wrestling, you have to work with each other to both look good. And if you try to outshine the other guy, then the match is probably not going to come out, really good. But it's mainly a very diverse wrestler. A lot of people, I like working with a lot of different style of people because it's a good challenge for me as well. And, it's given me a lot of good opportunities. And, I'm very grateful for the training that I've gotten at the Chara and Wrestle Factory, along with other places that I helped get trained at.
Yeah, okay. Now, you've been in it for about 10 years, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And before, maybe it might have been early in your career, correct me if I'm wrong, but your entrance music was Eye of the Tiger?
Yeah, the Eye of the Tiger for for
Nice.
a while. That that wasn't. It wasn't like, hey, what's your entrance music? It was like, this is your entrance music. I'm like, okay. And then when I heard it, I was like, wait, this is the song from Rocky.
Yeah.
And I want to say, I'm very naive when it comes to like pop culture before wrestling. I didn't know anything about like AC/DC, Metallica, and all that. All of these songs that I've heard, like on the indies, like the people's theme music, I thought they were just wrestling theme songs.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about them. So because of wrestling, I've been exposed to all these other genres of music that I like. And then when Guitar Hero came out, I'm like, oh, that's Sandman's music. Oh, that's Tommy Dreamer's music. But, it hasn't registered in my head like, oh, that's Metallica. That's,
Right.
And it's awesome. But, yeah, going back to mine, it was given to me, and I'm not going to lie to you, I hated it.
I was gonna ask, are you a big Rocky fan, or you just like the song, but you didn't pick
Oh,
it?
no,
So.
I'm a big Rocky fan, don't get me wrong, but I hated that song. For me, it was like so cliche, and then coming out in Philadelphia at the ECW arena is like, they hated me instantly because there was just like, who's this guy using Rocky's music? Don't disrespect the genre. And I'm like, I'm so sorry.
Right, that's cool. Okay, but I mean, even though it was given to you, you kept it for a while, though, right?
Yeah, I kept it for a while. I think it was a little bit of, I was too scared to try to change it.
Right.
And then finally, when I did change it, I was just like, hey, we're going to go with this song today. Let's see how it flows. And then that was the Duke Nukem theme song, because I was a big Duke Nukem fan, and it felt like it fit my character more. That's the Duke Nukem theme song by Megadeth.
Mm-hmm.
It was a little bit more upbeat. It was a little bit more my style. I like theme songs that don't have words, kind of like the old school WCW Cruiserweight songs.
Yeah.
I really like that kind of feel to the song. And when I changed it, I had stuck with that for almost 5 to 6 years after that.
Mm.
And I just recently changed it again. And like I said, because I found a more WCW Cruiserweight theme song that I use. It's Jordan Now by Buckethead. And the guy who originally made the Power Ranger theme song, the original Power Ranger theme song, had wrote the theme song for me right now. So it's kind of like a cool thing.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is cool.
All my songs have been, something in pop culture or related to something in pop culture.
Nice. Okay, you just mentioned Duke Nukem before. You're kind of an old school video game fan, right? I saw on your Facebook post.
Oh man, I've got 3 N64s. I still play my Game Boy, PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2. Me and Rich Swan are big gamers. But we're talking about retro games. We can play the newer games now, but they're not as challenging as like the older games. Recently, I had one of my good friends, John Cruz, come over to my house, and I had showed him. I said, "Hey man, look what I got at the Mall of America." And it's the original PlayStation 1 box. I don't know if you remember them.
Yes, yeah.
They used to come in CDs, CD cases, or boxes. And I had an original PlayStation 1 box of Doom. And I was like, I'm going to play this all night. It was just, like, games like that, you can put so many hours in. They're so challenging. They're so much fun. I remember when we used to have days off at Chikara, we would go to, I'm talking about 3 hours into Pennsylvania, Lancaster. Me, Hollow Wicked, Ophidian, Amasis, Frightmare, Tim Donst, and Hollow Wicked's cousin, his nephew, who was like 6 years old, kicked our butts every time. We would link up all these Xboxes and do like LAN parties of Halo. And we would spend like 8 hours, like from 12 o'clock to 8 o'clock at night, just constantly playing Capture the Flag, Deathmatch, things like that. And I kind of miss those. You don't see a lot of them now, as far as like wrestling wise. I kind of miss like that brotherhood.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very fortunate now down here. I have about like 3 or 4 guys that I could do that with, and just catch up. Because like I said, right now it's like you can go ahead on the internet, find a wrestling school, join up, and that's it. It's more like a business. When back then it was like a hush kind of thing.
Right, yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, like more of a camaraderie type thing.
Exactly.
Okay. So talk a little bit about Chikara now. And I think King of Trios tournament. You were in that early on in Chikara.
Yeah, I was actually in the very first one,
Yeah.
and then I won the second one. Me, Pantera, and Incognito, who is now the Sin Cara in WWE.
Oh, okay. Nice. And then eventually, you didn't win the first one, but you would go on to win it eventually.
Yeah, I won the second one in 2008, and I think I have the record for the most wins, along with Pantera, for wins at the King of Trios tournament.
Oh, nice.
I think like 7 or 9. I forget which one it is.
Oh, nice. Okay, and also I read about there was a hair versus mask match. Then you took a nasty bump and went wrong.
Yep.
What happened?
That was actually the last match of the 2007 season of Chikara, my debut year at Chikara. And that was against Marvelous Mitch Ryder and ECW Arena. The show was called Chapter 11. And we were the semi-main event. Main event would have been Claudio versus Hero in this big blow-off match. But because of my match, and, it was chaos, and we'll get into it in a second, they ended up stopping the show completely, and that match ended up happening 2 months later over at some college, I forget, over in PA.
Mm-hmm.
But pretty much what happened was we had a great storyline throughout the 2007 year, me and Mitch Ryder, where he was against the luchadors coming in. And, Mitch Ryder is a very old school Southern wrestler, so it just made for a good story and good dynamic. And, he wanted to take my mask, so I challenged him to a hair versus mask match. And we were just rocking and rolling, man. Like, I had my family there, I had my friends there, and I was feeling, that was the very first time in my career, my very short career, I felt comfortable in the ring. I felt like we were telling a great story. We were hitting all our moves 100% crisp. I thought my selling was like helping build drama in the match. And then when it came time for the finish, and mind you, we had all the wrestlers on the outside, and I was close to Helios, who was Ricochet now. And I go up, stand up, and I felt something was off. So if you watch the video, I stand up and I go right back down. Like, wasn't a slip; it was just like something was off. And then finally, when I went up, I went to go do the Shooting Star Senton, which is the shooting star, but then I went on my back. And it could have been timing. It could have been, maybe Mitch threw his shoulder up just a little bit too high. But either way, I smacked the back of my head and instantly looked at Ricochet. And in my head, I'm trying to tell him, hey, something is wrong. But my mouth wasn't moving.
Yeah.
And then, I blacked out. The match somehow got finished, where I ended up pinning him. I don't remember. I ended up having a seizure in the middle of the ring. People thought it was part of the show, so there was a lot of confused and scared people. And then finally, I was taken in the back. And what was unfortunate about that night, besides me getting hurt, was the doctor who was at the ECW arena, because Philadelphia has a very strict, commission, athletic commission. The doctor who was there was intoxicated.
Oh, man.
So he wasn't very helpful, when it came time to help me out. Who was very helpful, believe it or not, was Daisy Hayes. She was there. I think she was either training to be an EMT or she had experience with EMT. So she really did help me out a lot, along with Chris Hero and Mike Quackenbush, who, the identity of a wrestler is very important. So they made sure that not only was I taken care of, but my identity was too. And finally, when I came to, I thought I had fell asleep in the back, and I'm like, oh my God, did I miss my match? Am I about to go on? Is my music playing? And they said, no, man, you went out there and you had a bad fall. And, I was released that night from the hospital. All the wrestlers came and checked me out. Eddie Kingston was the last guy to come, first guy there, last guy to leave. So I'm very grateful for his friendship that night. And, I was released that night. And about two and a half months later, I returned to the ring. And, I made sure that I didn't get scared because I didn't want it to beat me, fear.
Yeah.
And, I could have walked away from that night and never got back in the ring, but, 10 years later, I'm still here doing my thing, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you said you blacked out like after it happened, and so you're just going off of people telling you what happened?
No, so I hit, and instantly I was like, oh man, that sucked. Like, that fall sucked. And I looked at Ricochet, and I'm trying to tell him something, but he's kind of looking at me with this blank face because when I was trying to tell him, my mouth wasn't moving.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it was just like a fade. Like, everything started turning black, and then I was out cold.
Wow.
And, like I said, the next thing I woke up, there was about 2 minutes where I couldn't hear anybody, but I could see people. And I see people, like, yelling and trying to shake me, like, wake up, or, like, just try to open my mouth. And then finally, when I did open my mouth, it was just, like, a big sigh of relief that I was okay, because I think I was like 18 when that happened.
Wow.
I was super young when I had my first match.
Yeah.
First big match, let alone at the arena in Philadelphia.
Oh,
And
wow.
it was a life-changing experience, but like I said, I didn't let it beat me, because if I did, I wouldn't be wrestling today.
Yeah, absolutely. What was the official diagnosis? Was it a concussion or was it worse?
Yeah, it was the worst concussion you could get.
Yeah.
That was actually the worst injury I've ever gotten because of wrestling. I also had a seizure in the middle of the ring.
Yeah.
It was recorded for a good 10 seconds. You could see it on the video. There was a good 15 minutes that I heard pass by from when it happened to the finish, and they tried to take me in the back. And there's like raw footage of it. I've never actually seen the raw footage. I don't need to see it. I already know what it is. I don't need it. I don't need that image in my head any more than I have from the images that I've already seen. And, like I said, I don't let those things bother me as much. But, it was diagnosed as a serious concussion.
Mm-hmm.
No injury to the neck, to the back. It did leave my left eye or my vision a little bit messed up. And if you check out the BDK gear, the mask has a red, scar mask, like a scar mark on the eye. And that's kind of just to, pay homage to that incident. Because you should never forget. You should always remember what made you who you are.
Yeah.
But, you don't ever dwell on it. So that was kind of why that was part of my mask for that time.
Yeah, that's really cool. And you said it didn't keep you out too long. Did they give you a prognosis of you're going to be out this long, or you kind of got back as soon as you could?
No, they gave me that time frame.
Oh, okay.
I think I had a couple bookings, the very next week that I had to cancel. I was supposed to be on PWS, and because of that, I had to cancel, and, I guess that burnt the bridge with them, which was kind of frustrating, because I'm like, well, I got hurt. I don't understand why you guys are going to penalize me, even to this day, honestly, for AKA no-showing. But I was like, it's documented everywhere on the internet that I was hurt. And, it's whatever. They're doing well, and I don't wish any bad things on them. But no, even when I made a return, it was just a run-in. It wasn't even a real match.
Oh, okay.
I think I had my first real match 4 months after that.
Mm-hmm. Damn, that's still pretty good. I mean, I would say.
Yeah. For a serious concussion and seizure, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, look at somebody like Daniel Bryan. Over time, it cost him his career. So.
Yeah, well, I mean that's years and years.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, but. Okay, you mentioned BDK stable. I wanted to talk about that, but before I talk about that, there was another stable you were part of. The Future Is Now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yep.
And who was involved in that? What was that about?
So the original Future Is Now stable was 4 of us. People don't realize that. It was me, Jigsaw, Jimmy Olsen, who was the new Equinox, and Helios, who was Ricochet. And then later on, the second reincarnation, which was shortly after the original one, was just me, Equinox, and Helios. And it was just the young studs of Chikara coming in, the high flyers, the exciting wrestlers, all just grouped together to just go out there in trios matches or tag matches, any form of those combinations, and just showcase what we can do. So, the Future Is Now is exactly what it says. It's the future of professional wrestling. Because look at, Jigsaw's killing it right now in Europe. Jimmy Olsen is doing his thing up in the Northeast. Ricochet is just an amazing athlete, and he's just a superstar in the world of professional wrestling right now. And me, I'm in the WWE Cruiserweight Classic, which I'm sure we'll talk about later on.
Yes, definitely. So how long did that run for, both incarnations?
Yeah, I mean, the total incarnation, because they ran back to back, was probably about a year and a half. And, there were some personal things that led to people leaving, whether it was Chikara or the stable itself. And then, like around that time, but it was shifting. And what I mean by that is Chikara was slowly changing from, the goofy characters to a little bit more wrestling, back to, a little bit more story-based. And it was just, when you have a roster of so many diverse wrestlers, you got to pick it. And, that's ended up why the Future is Now kind of broke off.
Okay. It was around that time, too, I think, that you suffered another injury, suplexed into the ring steps?
Yeah, well, that wasn't a serious injury. I was wrestling Player Dose for the Young Lions Cup ECW Arena again, and
Something about that place.
yeah, something about that place, man. And then we did a German suplex. Honestly, the spot was totally safe. I really didn't get hurt from there. It was a spot that was planned as far as like in the match, and we just executed it well enough, and the selling was done well enough that a lot of people said it was a real injury, but really it wasn't a real injury, and nothing came about it.
Okay. The act of selling.
Yeah, man.
There we go.
Make you believe almost 8 years later that it happened.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. And you mentioned before the BDK stable.
Yes.
And you wanna talk about that? Who was involved in that, and what does that stand for? First of all.
So BDK is Bruderschaft der Crucis, which is, Brotherhood of the Cross. It was a German stable because the originals were Claudio, who is Swiss but who can speak, fluent German, and his original trainer, who is Aries from Germany, who is obviously German. And pretty much what happened was the storyline goes the shift of power from the director front of Chikara, because there's a director front of Chikara, and a group of guys who wanted to take Chikara over. And we had, like I said, Claudio. You had Aries. You had Sarah Del Rey. You had Daisy Hayes. You had me, Pinky Sanchez, Tim Donst, and Tarsus. And it was just a group of just diverse wrestlers who came together, just to run roughshod on Chikara. And the reason I actually joined, the storyline goes, is because I was getting that Rocky Maivia treatment, where I was being pushed to the stars, and the fans realized that, hey, this isn't the guy that we want. And so I would have killer matches, and I would go out there as a good guy and try to shake people's hands, but people would always boo me. And then finally we turned it into a storyline where I'm like, well, I'm going to give you a reason to boo me. And one day, again, ECW Arena, it was supposed to be a six-man tag where it was supposed to be me, Mike Quackenbush, and Jigsaw versus the BDK at that time, and ended up turning on them. So a lot of people kind of figured out that I was supposed to be the seventh member because there's so many subliminal messages, but a lot of people also really didn't realize that it wasn't me. So it was the only time in my true career that I was actually a bad guy. And it was actually a lot of fun doing that.
Yeah. That's a lot of people in interviews say that they prefer playing a heel for a face because you get away with more as a heel.
Yeah, but when it comes to money-wise,
yeah, take a hit there. Yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So the BDK stable and Future Now stable, I mean, similarities or totally different experiences?
Totally different, but they overlapped each other. Like it went from the Future Now, and then it kind of just maybe 2 or 3 shows where I was kind of in limbo, and then right away I was back in the BDK. Or I was in the BDK. So it was a very Future Is Now. We were just if we wanted to have a good match, they would put us on.
Right.
BDK, if I wanted to be in the spotlight and excel in my career, that's where I needed to be.
Okay. All right. October of 2010, I believe, was your first trip to Japan?
Yes.
Okay.
And that was with me, Frank Mir, Tim Donst, Vin Gerard, and think that was it. I may have been missing somebody else. I apologize if I do. I'm so sorry.
And what promotion was that for?
That was for Soccer Pro Wrestling. So we had Chikara had a joint kind of pro. I don't know what the actual word is, but
like a partnership.
Partnership. They brought people over here, we used them, and then they had to send people over there for a couple of tours. We were actually the first tour to go there. And man, that whole experience going there was just amazing, and being there was just even more amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Have you been since?
I've been back a couple times for a couple of smaller promotions. I'm in talks right now going back, hopefully by the end of this year. I just plan to make the most of it. But since then, I've done some other stuff in Mexico and Canada, and obviously across the U.S. So, I've taken that experience and the training that I also got there at that time and just, used it over here in the stateside.
Okay, so your first trip over there, was there somebody that was kind of like a liaison to help you out with culture and whatnot over there?
No, when I went over there, I was still in college, and this was probably my sophomore year, or leading up into my junior year, my third year of college. And my first 2 years, I wanted to get easy grades and, bring my GPA up, so I took Spanish. And obviously I know Spanish, but it was just so boring. So I had took Spanish 4 times, and I dropped 4 times. And then finally they introduced Japanese. And I was like, oh, this is perfect, because in about a year, I'm going to go to Japan. So we had a couple guys over there who were really good at speaking English, or well enough that they could speak English. But I also knew a little bit of Japanese, and, I love the Japanese culture. I love the food. I love Pokemon and all that thing. So I was exposed to that before I got there. So, we went there at a crazy time because it was Halloween. And, you got 4 or 5 American guys dressed up as schoolgirls running the streets of Osaka. And people are like, what's going on? But, man, we made the most of it because we didn't know if we were going to be back, especially after our experiences there. And I can recall a time where me and Frightmare were out to like 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. And, in Japan, they won't rent you a hotel room if you're 2 guys, for whatever reason. So we ended up getting to an elevator where we ended up passing out and sleeping, and people were coming in and out, and 8 o'clock came, and this lady walked in, and she thought we were dead and screamed. And finally we wake up, and we're like, well, I guess we're going back to the dojo. So that was my craziest experience there.
Wow, yeah, definitely. What was the schoolgirls thing? Where'd that come from?
So it was Halloween, and we were like, we're going to go out to wherever. And we had asked a couple people. We met some friends there that were, wrestling fans. And we were like, hey, what can we do? And they were like, oh, well, you need a costume to get into these, clubs. Because like I said, it was Halloween. It was legit October 31st. And we're like, okay, well, let's find a cheap costume. And, the girl was like, well, you look like you're my size. And in my head, I looked at Frightmare, and we kind of had the same idea, like, well, do you have schoolgirl outfits? And, thinking like, oh, Japanese people have schoolgirl outfits. And she said, yeah. And we were like, okay, well, I guess we're going to go as girls. And we made the ugliest girls in the world. So, we hadn't shaved or anything, our legs, our armpits, our faces. So we were girls that had blonde and red wigs with a beard and a dirty mustache.
Oh, man.
It was people loved it, and we loved it. But looking back at it now, as I'm a little bit older, I'm like, oh, man, that was ugly.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so how soon after you get back from Japan, because you eventually ended up leaving Chikara, right?
Yeah, I ended up leaving around 2011.
Okay.
I moved down to Florida 2010. I still did trips back and forth from Florida to PA to do the shots of Chikara, and then eventually I was it was too time consuming, too much money, and I wasn't making enough money to support my habit, and it was just time to leave. And if anybody knows anything about wrestling, especially like little cliques or little companies, it is like a bubble, and you do get stuck in that bubble. And if you don't ever try to venture out, you're going to be inevitable forever. And I knew what my goals were as far as wrestling wise, and the only way to do that was to leave Chikara. But like I said, whether I left on a good or bad note, that's up to me and the people to decide. But I'm very grateful for the experience that I had. I'm very grateful for the training I had. I'm very grateful for the people I've met there, and I still am good friends with a lot of people there. So it's whenever I see them, it's like we never left. But you know,
so,
the reality is that we did leave.
Yeah. So what went into the decision to leave, though? Was it more or less, like you said, you had certain goals and you wanted to expand out more, or was it just to travel, or like a combination of the everything?
Well, the travel definitely, because I was paying for my own travel to get back and forth, and you know, being a college student, it was just all my money went to wrestling, whether it was gear or food or just to live and survive. So a $200 plane ticket may not seem a lot, but when you're only making $400 a month, that's half your income. So you know, a little bit of that, and plus, like I said, I knew what my goals were. And if I wanted to be taken a little bit more serious, I needed to, you know, do more serious shows or venture out and challenge myself and not wrestle the same guys, because that's what we were doing.
Yeah.
We were traveling in groups of 4 or 5 and wrestling each other for years. And, you know, I needed to challenge myself, and that's what I did.
Okay. So after Jakara, earlier on, I know you did some work for Dragon Gate. Is that right?
Yep. I was on the very first Dragon Gate show, again, at the ECW Arena. I won the very first Dragon Gate match, which was a Philly match, and I'm talking about, this was a who's who of wrestlers now, where the finals was me and Johnny Gargano, and I ended up beating him. And now, you know, fast forward a couple of years later, you can see where Johnny is, and you can see where I am.
Yeah, and, maybe we can see it again.
Yeah, hey, you never might know. But yeah, I worked for Dragon Gate, and then, you know, I ventured off a little bit into FIP, and then I did the Evolve thing when they started coming out. I did the CZW thing. I just ventured out, man, as much as I can. That's the name of the game. If you want to get your name out there, you got to travel.
Yeah. Do you still do work with FIP?
Yeah, occasionally I do. I did this show probably about 2 months ago. They run every other month mostly. They're still down here in Florida.
Yeah.
A little bit different product than it was back in the day, but you know, my main focus right now is like Evolve and WWE.
Oh no, I was just asking because coming up on I think Tuesday, I have FIP World Champion Fred Yehai.
Yeah, man. Me and him were talking, and we need to cross paths, me and him. I told him that.
Yeah, so I'm definitely looking forward to it. He's a cool guy. All right, so somewhere in between there was a TNA Dark match?
Yep, 2013, I believe, October 4th.
Yeah, that almost didn't happen, because I think the story went... I'll let you tell it, but just to give you a little background, you can fill in the holes. Kid Cash was supposed to be your opponent, and then his flight was delayed, or it was late. And then Kazarian had stepped up to volunteer to wrestle you for that match, right?
Yeah, so what happened was, that was October 4th was that match. A couple months before that, I randomly got an email from Al Snow talking about, hey, we like your work. We know that you're in Florida. We'd like to bring you in October 4th for this dark match just to see how it is and how it goes. So like you said, I showed up. Waited almost an hour before the show started, and you know, on the board it says Lince Dorado versus Kid Cash, and I'm like, hey, where's the kid? Is he okay? Is he hurt? Or are they gonna find a replacement? And you know, one of the producers said, well, it might not happen because his flight is delayed. We'll get you information as it you know, we get closer. Well, it was about to be 30 minutes before the show started, or my segment, my match. And, you know, they're like, hey, we're going to scrap it. And then Kazarian kind of heard that, and he's, you know, I think at that time he was like the tag champs with Christopher Daniels. And he said, hey, well, I'll wrestle him. And I was like, man, this guy didn't have to do that at all. You know, he's TNA tag champion. He's salary. He doesn't have to worry about getting in the ring. He doesn't have to take bumps or anything. But he volunteered, and I thought we had a great 10-minute match where everybody liked it. We walked in the back. He loved it. Christopher Daniels was like, that was awesome. AJ Styles came over to me, and he gave me some great feedback. He said the only thing that he didn't like was my lockup, and that was because I had a little bit different lockup because it's a lucha style. But, ever since then, I fixed that. So I thought we had a great match, and very, very fortunate and very grateful that he did that for me.
Yeah, definitely. That's cool. Okay, and then that led to there was a 7-way match a few months later, but that didn't go so great for you.
Yeah. Okay, so, the TNA has a stigma to it, whether it's good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
That was their very first one-night stand pay-per-view where it was the one night only, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Extravaganza, all X Division. And this is the time that the X Division was just on fire. Like, that was their meat and potatoes. Everybody who watched TNA watched it for the X Division. And originally my match was supposed to be me, Matt Bentley, Sean, he's going to hit me for it. I'm so sorry. And one other person, I forget who it was. And a 4-way cage match. And, we had great ideas, and we were going to, tear the house down because it's a 4-way. Oh, and Puma. It was the 4th one. And then in another match, another 4-way, somebody had no show. So instead of turning that match into a 3-way or a triple threat, they said, hey, let's put those 3 guys in this cage match. So we kind of looked at each other like, what do we do? Oh, not only that, it was elimination, by the way.
Oh, man. Wow.
So we always had 2 guys. One corner had 2 guys in it because it was just, the ring was small and we were stuck in this cage that we couldn't get out of. And it was just chaotic. Christian York was the winner of that match. And, I'm not going to say anything bad about Christian, but, maybe the match would have been better if Christian was there mentally as well. But
I got you, yeah.
He did his thing, and he was contracted, so they put him in that position, and it just was a blah experience that second time around.
Yeah.
And, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I was there. I got paid. That's all that matters.
Yeah, exactly. You mentioned too before. I want to ask you about your gear, and you're somebody who makes gear and makes your own gear. El Pantera had got you started doing that. Is that correct?
Yeah. So he was actually one of the first people to use my gear, my very first set of gear. And I was always interested in gear because of the Lucha Libre style and like how colorful and how intricate it was. And when he gave it to me, I was like, you cherish your first set of gear because it's the first thing you ever get. Mm-hmm. And looking back at it now, I'm like, plain black tights with gold design on the side. I could do that in like 2 hours. But eventually, I wanted to get some like crazier gear, like more designs, more detail. And people, back then were like just charging me way too much money. And like I said, I'm a college student, not making enough money. Mm-hmm. I can't afford it. So one day, I was actually the night before I wrestled Chris Hero in Connecticut. I decided to make a pair of tights. So I was like, let me see how hard it is. And I did. They were traditional lucha-style tights, one color, knee pads on the knees, and a different color pair of trunks on the outside. And I thought they were the coolest things I've ever did in my life. And looking back at it, I'm like, well, these are the worst pair of tights I've ever made. But I still wore them that day, and it was, looking back, I was like, what was I thinking? But, that was the first and last pair I ever made, and then I took a little hiatus because I was like, okay, well, maybe I'm not that good at it. And then fast forward, probably about like 3 years later, again, I got that little itch where I'm like, well, I know I can sew. I know I could do this thing. And, another guy who inspired me, and this is the reason why I started making my own gear, 2 reasons. Number one, Claudio made his own gear, and I was like, well, if he can do it, I can do it, And number 2, I had a really good match at Evolve with AR Fox, and I had great feedback. The only bad thing that I got was that my gear was, not really good. And I agreed with him. And because Gabe Sapolsky told me that, I said, well, you know what? If he could tell me that I'm a good wrestler, but my gear sucks, maybe I need to get better at, my gear game. Mm-hmm. And that's what I ended up doing. I took the time to learn how to make better gear, do better designs. I'm still learning today how to do, some techniques that will help me out. But I think my gear game from when I started to now has just been, completely different. And a lot of people compliment me on my gear.
Yeah, and a lot of NXT guys and gals have been showing up lately, right? With
Yeah. So I used to make. I don't make as much anymore, just because I'm focusing more on my physique and my wrestling career. But I still do occasionally. Probably I'll do like 2 or 3 sets of gear a month, just to help some friends out or some new clients. But some of the guys and girls that I used to make for are, Charlotte. I made her first set of gear for her first like 3 or 4 sets. Adam Rose, Chad Gable. We had some other ones here. Man, I got a couple lists, but those were like my big ones because they always constantly came back to me. I did Rusev's first set of gear for him, and Sami Callihan. I did his gear when he was over there at Lynn Crow.
Mhm.
I did a lot of guys, and I still do some stuff like I said today.
So is that something that kind of just spread like word of mouth?
Yeah, so like I did Sammy's gear while he was in NXT, and it came out really great. We had some flaws that we fixed later on, and then somebody had asked him, "Oh, where did you get your gear from?" And then he said, "Me." And it just so happens that I'm like 30 minutes from the PC or the NXT.
Yeah.
And it was like, "Oh, well, this guy's local. He's fast. He can do it." And then one person came to me, and then Adam Rose came to me, and Adam Rose told another person, and it just like snowballed from there. But then, like I said, wrestling for me had picked up, so my turnaround time wasn't as great. And then, I was just being very honest with people that, I just want to take limited orders and, just do it at my time.
Right.
And like I said, if everybody gets gear from me and my gear is great, at least like my personal gear, and everybody else has great gear, nothing's going to make me stand out. So I kind of, like I said, took a back burner to making gear for a lot of people, so that way I could stand out.
Yeah. Now, was there a partnership or a relationship with Master Republic and Jesse Hernandez?
Well, yeah, we just recently, me and him, I've been with Master Republic from 2007, and we had did a Viva La Lucha pilot in Tijuana. That was my first introduction to Mexico, and that was hopefully to be picked up by G4 at that time. But nothing happened. But we stayed in contact. I got some bookings from them. I got some good advice from them, and then recently, last year, I feel like it was like almost out of nowhere, this guy Jesse Hernandez popped up on my feed, and he was just a great artist, and his style was old school lucha mixed with like Aztec kind of feel, and I dug it. So I liked his pictures, and then all of a sudden he messages me. I message him back, and then from there I said, "Hey man, well, I have this good opportunity that I'd like to get you a part of." And my idea was, I want you to redesign the Lince character. And from there, he ended up doing it. And, we made it come true with the gear and the mask to come to life. And that's actually the image right now that I'm using for the WWE Cruiserweight Classic.
Okay, nice. I saw another picture, too. There was a Sugar Skull mask. Is that something you made or you were going to make, or...?
Yeah, so if it's the one I'm thinking about, I made a Sugar Skull mask that was blue, and it was mostly just the material that had the Sugar Skull print. I like that kind of stuff because that's like lucha to me, and that's more of the Mexican style. Even though I'm not Mexican, you can still appreciate that kind of stuff. And this other mask that you may have been talking about was legit lucha mask that had a Sugar Skull feel to it, that I liked the picture, and I ended up recreating it myself, just so I could have the mask. I don't wear it at any shows, it's just there, in my mask bin, just hanging out, but I love Lucha Libre masks, and I like it.
Is that something maybe for sale, or...?
Yeah, I mean, I'm constantly selling, whether they're in-ring masks or ring-worn masks, or people will message me like, "Hey, can you make me a custom mask?" Whether they want to wear it in the ring or if they're just fans. People they just have to ask, and I think that's what they're scared of. Everybody's always scared to ask, whether it's a public figure or a wrestler or just somebody. And that's all they got to do is just email me, and I'm very, very on my phone as far as like emails and things like that. And,
Yeah.
I'll respond to them super quick. But yeah, I do sell masks, like my mask, and I currently have 3 for sale. So.
Okay, well, we'll have to talk off air maybe.
Yeah.
With all that being said though about gear, how important would you say like a wrestler's gear or look is for them, like, especially like luchadors?
Oh, for luchadors, it's their identity.
Yeah.
The mask is their identity, but the costume itself, the gear, I mean, you can't say you're Darth Vader and you look like a Jigglypuff, Like, your gear has to match what you are. But, right now, wrestling is in a weird state because that borderline between good guy and bad guy is not really there anymore. You don't really see a lot of that on WWE TV or like the Japanese videos. It's more in the Mexican and the Lucha Libre where there's still good guys and bad guys. Because now it's all about competition, right? Athleticism, and can you captivate an audience by just performing and making it look like a fight? And, whether people want to say wrestling is real or fake, it's athletic. And that's where it's at. It is a sport, and it is physical, so that's where we're going to leave that part at. But as far as the gear goes, I mean, some people are just dudes in tights, some people are just dudes in trunks, some guys are dudes in masks. But right now, the gear to character relationship is really not there because, like I said, there's no more good guys and bad guys. It's all about competition. Yeah. So people might like something and they might go, well, I'm going to put that on my tights. And boom, it's on their tights.
Yeah. Okay, I think I read too, or I saw somewhere, did you do some work with Teddy Hart back in the day?
Not back in the day. I recently, like last year and the year before that, and because of that, man, we've become like really good friends, which is like kind of crazy because if anybody knows any Teddy Hart, like as soon as you say Teddy Hart to a wrestler, they're like, oh god, here we go. Yeah. And from his stories from ROH to the stories that you hear now, like Teddy Hart is a legend, an internet legend, and he just makes the boys like happy because he always has good stories, or you always have something good to say about him. I've never heard any really bad stories about Teddy Hart, whether they've been because they're just funny or they're just like, well, I can't believe he did that. Yeah. But Teddy Hart's been the man that I've watched for a while too. And me and him tagged. Me and him wrestled for a good 2 minutes, and then me and him tagged, and then we wrestled again, and we just hung out because he's around the same group of people here, for the area. So every time I see him, it's just a good time.
Cool. Okay, there was another stable. Yeah, there was another stable too. You were a part of Lucha World Order.
Yeah, that's my current AKA brand or stable that we're pushing. Yeah.
Okay, and how did that come about?
Yeah, so actually, a little bit of FIP comes into play here, and so what ended up happening was FIP, when it fell off the face of the earth, and then it came back because management gave the reins to somebody else, and there's a group of guys there, and it just so happened that we were all Latino. Me, 450, John Cruz, and Jay Rios, and we felt like we were the workhorses at FIP. And again, if they wanted to have a good match, they would put them with us, whoever it was, whether it be Juicy Product or their champion, Caleb Conley, or whoever it was at that time. They would say, okay, well, you're going to wrestle these guys. And we were never really pushed to where we felt we should have been. So kind of like a real life altercation turned into like a storyline, and then it turned into this like whole thing that we call the LWO Lucha World Order. And obviously we're big fans of like Eddie Guerrero and the original Latino World Order, and it just worked out that Lucha and Latino start off with the same letter. Yeah. And Now it's crazy because people will now refer to us as that. Like, it started out as just me just calling us that, just to pop us or whatever. But then, companies would book us as like tag teams, like, oh, the LWO versus, this and that, or trios matches, and that's what we, specialize in as trios matches, because nobody else really does them. It's always tag matches.
Mm-hmm.
And, now we've teamed up with like Master Public to do Lucha World Order merch. And, this guy named Chris Parks, who does Tail Horse, and he helps create a lot of the logos and the designs that go into that. So, like I said, it's just like our brand. It's our motto. It's our way of life, and it's just like a way that people recognize who we are today.
Yeah, definitely. The merchandise looks cool. I have to admit that. I like a lot of it. It looks cool.
Thank you, man.
Okay, you have done a whole bunch of tournaments throughout your career, and
King of tournament.
yeah, I was gonna ask you if you feel that has helped. Obviously, it's helped you leading you to the Cruiserweight Classic, but has it hurt you maybe in the sense that you got pigeonholed into being a tournament guy, like in a negative light?
A little bit. For a while, I was always that multi-man guy, whether it be, like I said, 6-man tag, 4-way, 3-way, 5-way, 6-way, whatever it is. And, that was cool for a while just because, when you're young, you're just happy to be on shows. But now it's all about, how to stand out and how to look different. And the only way to do that is really have singles matches where all eyes are on you and somebody else, not 5 other people that they have to, focus on. And I've literally been, besides Bola, on every American tournament there is, from Super Indies to, the Florida, the FRP tournaments that they have, Young Lions Cup, King of Trios, all of those, all across the U.S., Sweet 16 for First Wrestling over in Minnesota. Like I said, every tournament besides Bola I've been on. It's just, like you said, I've been that multi-man guy, but just recently, besides the Cruiserweight Classic, which is a tournament, I've been doing a lot more singles or tag matches just to save my body. And like I said, it's all about exposure and how different you are.
Right, definitely. Okay, and you've done some work. Let me see. I want to run down Dreamwave, Evolve. You mentioned FIP. So how did it come together for the Cruiserweight Classic?
Yeah, so obviously word of mouth. It just, like I said, by default, before the PC was ever built, I moved down to Florida, where eventually the PC would be built. And, word of mouth just got around where, hey, we have this great guy. He's a great wrestler. He's a lucha guy. He lives down here in Florida. You guys should give him a shot. And there was about 2 or 3 years that I would spend, just asking everybody, hey, do you have a contact? Do you have a number? Do you have an email? Who should I contact? Where eventually I did get that contact. And for about 2 years straight, I emailed and called WWE like, hey, I'm local. I was interested in doing extra work, and then I wasn't interested in doing it because I didn't want to, hurt my value, and just years of just heckling them. And then eventually one day, and like I said, Gabe Sapolsky has been a great influence in my career, whether he knows it or not. And I don't think I've ever actually told him this, but I guess he had talked to WWE. This was during the time that WWE and Evolve are working together. Mm-hmm. And, they had told him about me and, mentioned that I was local. And one day I checked my email and I got an email from WWE saying, hey, we may have an opportunity for you. Please make sure that you email us that day, this particular day that they gave me. So I spent about 2 months just looking at my calendar, looking at the time, and eventually when that day came, I emailed them, and instantly, right away, I got an email back, asking me if I was interested in doing the Cruiserweight Classic, and, I emailed them. I didn't know what else to say besides yes. So,
yeah, right. Of course. So, take me to the process of, okay, you get the email, you're going to the Cruiserweight Classic, and obviously there was not I don't want to say tournament, but qualifying for that.
So I was very fortunate where I didn't have to qualify.
Oh, okay.
They had announced about 6 or 7 names, and I was the last person on that list where they gave me the okay to go ahead and announce me. at an FIP show. So, I showed up to an FIP show, I wrestled, and then they pulled me aside and said, hey, do you mind doing an interview saying that you're going to be in the Cruiserweight Classic? And WWE gave me the okay. And, I made the announcement there, and I ended up being, before they announced everybody, the very last person they announced. I was like the 8th person that they announced out of the 32 guys.
Oh, okay.
And, I didn't have to qualify. A couple of the guys, even if they were announced, were qualified. But, you kind of knew that they were going to go over in the match because, they were already announced. But, in wrestling, you never might know. They could announce them, and then somebody might upset them.
Right.
And, somebody else is now in the tournament. So, I didn't have to qualify, and I was just very fortunate that I was already in the tournament, and I'm just happy to be there, man.
Right, definitely. Now, they take that serious with the weight class, with the weight limit, right?
Oh, yeah, they had sent out a crazy email, and one of the things definitely was like, you need to be 205 or less, or you cannot participate. And, I was like, well, I'm nowhere near 205, so I'm okay. But when we showed up, there was about 3 guys that you looked at them, you're like, well, you're definitely over 200 pounds. You are pushing it. Mm-hmm. And one of my good friends, Alejandro Sayas, who is representing Chile, and the video is out now. You guys can check it out on WWE.com or their YouTube channel. He was announced, and it was legit. Like, everybody saw it, and they did not add weight. They did not take away weight. He weighed 205 on the dot.
Yeah,
so
I saw that.
He dropped 35 pounds to be a part of this tournament, and I'm glad he did because his hard work did pay off. Mm-hmm. Because he did make the weight, and he was able to participate.
Yeah, that's cool. Now, as far as something like that, though, if somebody doesn't make weight or an injury or something, do they have, like, a certain number of guys as reserves?
Yeah, there's always reserves for those kind of things, and, there was information that was leaked out that there were about, like, 3 or 4 guys that they brought in, just in case, but, and you feel for those guys, especially if they don't get picked or they don't get used, but, at the same time, that spot's, man, like, that potentially is your spot that could be taken away, so, if they're there for a reason, and everybody who needed to be there and make the weight, they made sure that they busted their butt to make the weight.
Okay, now, I don't know if you're allowed to answer this or not, but at the end of it, because I'm still not sure how it comes together as far as, like, brackets or how it breaks down or groups or whatever, but at the end of it, is there going to be a title and, like, going forward, like, a new division?
Yeah, well, that I cannot answer because I don't have the answers.
Okay.
You know as much as I do, brother, and that's not even like me trying to sugarcoat it. It's a learning process right now with all the wrestlers and WWE because they don't know how it's going to be taken by the audience, or the live audience. But, you can check it out on July 6th is the bracketology, where they break down all the tournament or all the competitors and all the matches in the tournament. And I'm pretty sure they're going to say, maybe what the winner gets or what the end result is. But honestly, man, I cannot answer that because I don't have the answers. Nobody does.
Yeah.
I don't even think Vince McMahon and Triple H have that answer right now because we're changing the wrestling business right now, and it's just new territory, and it's just a new generation of guys who have this desire to just go out there and just perform, and wrestling is changing. Right now, the cruiserweights are at the front of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was gonna say, just a couple weeks ago they had the Best of the Super Juniors tournament, and then you mentioned Ebola coming up, so it's like a good time to be in that kind of weight range.
Yeah, that's what all the wrestlers are. Like the current wrestling scene is like they're Daniel Bryan size. They're not these big dudes. They're not like these really small dudes. They're just normal sized dudes with different bodies and different physiques and different wrestling abilities. And just right now, there's no mold for what the wrestler looks like because every wrestler looks different.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so coming up in the tournament, is there certain names out there that you looking forward to working with within the tournament or even in the future?
Yeah, man. Obviously, every wrestler there is there for a reason. There's something special about them that WWE saw that if they're there for a reason. So every one of them are special, and I would definitely love to wrestle each one of them. But there are definitely some standouts of guys that I've never personally wrestled, whether it be one-on-one or tag matches, that I would love to wrestle. Like, I've wrestled Coda and, Rich Swann before, but, guys like Tozawa and Ho-Ho Loon and even Tajiri, when they announced Tajiri, the fan in me came out, because
Yeah.
Tajiri has been a big influence, and, he may be one of the older, more experienced guys in the matches, but he's definitely that influential wrestler for my generation. Like, people watched him in Super Crazy tear the house down at ECW, and I would love to go one-on-one with him in the tournament. But like I said, anybody right now, I would love to go in there and just tear it up and show them why the cruiserweights right now are the most important division in professional wrestling, at least in WWE, if it does become a division.
Yeah, I hope it does, because, I mean, a lot of the names out of the 32, I haven't heard of all of them, to be honest, but the names I do know, like, I can't wait to see. Like, I hope going forward, even with the current roster guys and some of the people in NXT, even free agents out there, if they mix all that together with even half the tournament, I mean, that's going to be a great division, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like you said, there's a lot of names that you guys don't know about, but by the end of the tournament, these are going to be household names, because we are the first, group of guys that are doing this Cruiserweight Classic. And, after this, whether they advance or not, or they get signed or not, or whatever the end result is, they're going to be big stars in their own countries and their own promotions, because they're going to be seen by millions and millions of people across the world. So it's going to be a great, great opportunity for guys like, those guys, especially if they're not established stars, because now they're going to become stars.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't want to give away any spoilers, but the first round was taped already, and it does air on the 13th, I believe.
Yep, the very first episode airs on the 13th, and I think each episode is about to be 4 or maybe 5 matches. It depends on how long the matches are.
Yeah. So we're kind of winding down here. One more question I have for you, and before I ask, I want to thank you for taking time out and being on.
Oh, man, no problem. Thank you for having me here, because, this gives more people an opportunity to understand my story and understand where I'm coming from. A lot of people just watch on YouTube and don't really get to know the wrestlers, so this is a great opportunity to kind of build that bridge between the wrestlers and the fans. So,
Yeah.
Thank you, man.
Definitely. Okay, last question I have for you. When you made the PWI 500 for the first time, was that a big deal?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That PWI, right now, I don't want to say it's kind of without diminishing the value of what the PWI means to a lot of wrestlers. But, to make it the first time, especially that's a magazine that I would buy before I was even in wrestling. So to even see my name in there, along with all these other guys. And I think the first time I was ranked like super high, like in the 250s or something like that, out of the 500. And, I framed it. I think I bought like 5 magazines, gave one for Christmas present.
Nice.
Things like that. And then in 2008, they gave me like a 4-page spread, like full color, like this great story on me. That was after I got hurt and won King of Trios. And I also kept that. And it was just, if you're a true wrestling fan from my generation, the PWI meant a lot to you, because that was the only way, if you weren't there live, to understand the results of certain shows. And to understand like wrestlers that normally you wouldn't see.
Yeah, I like to ask everybody that I interview that has made it, like, because they say the same thing. Like, it's a different generation, obviously, but that's what I grew up, like, that was kind of like the encyclopedia and whatnot.
Exactly, yes.
So, all right, do you want to throw out the air dates again for the Cruiserweight Classic, and then you could throw out your social media plugs?
Sure. So, July 6th, that is Bracketology. That's on the WWE Network. That's the breakdown of all the matches and the tournament completely. They break down all the wrestlers and just, gives you all the insight of what to expect. And then the first episode will premiere on July 13th. And every week after that, it'll be, I'm pretty sure that's a Wednesday, that Wednesday at 9 o'clock, I believe. I don't know which episode I'm going to be on because they may take matches from what's supposed to be episode 4 and put them on 2. I don't know. So, like I said, you know as much as I do right now.
Right.
And then, I'm going to be all over the place in the next 3 months, so I can't even plug those things because I'm California one day, Mexico, Puerto Rico, I'm back over here in Florida, might be in Chicago, at Rhode Island, I just picked up Texas. I'm everywhere right now, and the next 3 months are going to be kind of crazy for me.
Okay.
But the only way to check me out and keep up with me is social media. I'm on Instagram at Lince__ Dorado. I'm on Twitter at Perfect10LD. Facebook at Facebook.com/Lince Dorado. And you can always email me questions, comments, hate mail, good mail, fan art at Perfect10LD@gmail.com. And I'm always answering whether it's good or bad. I may troll you back. I mean, I don't know. But, that's my social media. I'm on ProWrestlingTees.com/Lince Dorado, where I have some new merch up there. And right now we're having a 20% off sale up to July 4th. And I got a great new shirt by Jesse Hernandez, Urban Azteca, for $20, but it's 20% off. So if you're good at math, you know how much that is. But, so those are my plugs. Follow me and support indie wrestling, man. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, definitely. And again, thank you for being on and taking time out. I really appreciate it.
No problem, man. Thank you for having me on, honestly.
All right, that was my conversation with Lince Dorado of the upcoming Cruiserweight Classic on the WWE Network, July 6th. Wednesday will be the bracketology breakdown and figure out how the format's going to be and all that stuff. Definitely check that out. And July 13th is the first episode of the first round of matches, or part of the first round of matches. Not sure. Gonna have to watch to see where Lince appears, first round. And definitely look forward to that. And if you don't know the name, you're definitely going to be knowing the name. Lince Dorado, very, very soon, coming up in the next coming months. And like I said, hopefully it leads to bigger and better things for him. And you should look up all his stuff on YouTube, hit him up on social media, and I will get out of here on my plugs. Facebook group page, Electric City Wrestling Fans. Please join and add your friends. Pass the word along. Most importantly, iTunes. Like, rate, review, subscribe, and tell your friends also and to subscribe and pass the word along. And let's keep building this thing so I keep getting great guests like Lince Dorado. So I'm going to go enjoy some fireworks, guys. Enjoy.